right, everyone, welcome to Medicine Buddha. If you're new, please say hello, introduce yourself in the chat box. I'm Lama Rod, if there's any confusion. As Beyonce would say, I am that girl. So there we are. I know at least one of you went to the Beyonce concert or Renaissance concert, is the one who's currently voguing. And they're, I'm not going to mention it. I wasn't called to Renaissance this year, but there'll be more. But anyway, welcome, everyone. Thank you to so here I go with all the incense. Thank you to all the practice leaders who stepped in to continue practice. I deeply appreciate it, as always. And welcome to those of you who are returning. It's good to see you. And what else? Prayer requests, as usual, you'll get the link. Go ahead and start putting your prayer requests up for our practice. If you're new, all the instructions are on the Google Doc. So it's self-explanatory. If you'd like to add something to that, those are offered during our practice. Let's see. Any questions that I can explore before we begin our session? Yes.
Would you like to say anything about the upcoming course?
Yes. Yeah, we have an upcoming course. Well, it's not actually a course, it's just a lecture series on spiritual abolition as understood through the Heart Sutra. And of course, the Heart Sutra is one of my main, I would say the Heart Sutra is like my number one kind of Buddhist scripture sutra that I work from. It kind of forms the groundwork of my Dharma activity. And so I've been wanting to talk about it more, informally. But in New Saints, I really do a lot of work with the Heart Sutra. I always do, I did some Heart Sutra work in Love and Rage as well. But in the course, we'll be looking at how I understand spiritual abolition through a Dharmic lens and grounding that work in the Heart Sutra, which is really about balance. How do we get liberation? How do we achieve freedom through balance, not through extremism? Buddha Dharma is the middle way. So it's about coming into the middle, beginning to balance extremism, right? And so it'll be 3 Sundays beginning August 27th. And there'll be the 3 Sundays, the 27th and the 2 first Sundays of September as well. Okay, but that's in the email. I think a link has been posted. Anyone can sign up for that course or that series as well. You'll get transcripts as well, and there'll be practice and discussion and so forth, as I usually do. Okay. Any questions? Oh, Denise. There's a lot of it.
Yeah. I have a question. I've heard you said it yesterday at Chinrezi, but talking about higher frequencies, and I think I've sort of avoided, I think because of the way I've been introduced to like frequency conversation in the past that involved like a lot of bypassing. But then it's also sort of then created this distrust for space. And going into space. And so can you talk a little bit about like trusting, I mean, just a little bit about that.
Yeah, trusting the space, but going to space not to bypass, right? Because that's, that's really, you get a lot of that and more of a new age treatment of space and frequency, right? It's let's go somewhere else, right? But and Dharma, it's like there's nowhere to go, instead of going somewhere, we're just showing up in the moment. Space is how we have the fluidity and the movement to be in the present moment without being consumed by whatever energy or material is arising in the moment, right? So space is, I take refuge in space because it holds everything. And that gives me the space to be in relationship to whatever is arising in front of me, and to show up with agency as well, to feel as if I have a choice, right? Of course, that choice can be to bypass, right? But if we're talking about liberation isn't about skipping over or going around, but liberation is about going into the thing, the material, right? And space gives us, space to be in a responsive relationship to what arises instead of a reactive relationship. And we won't ever get free through reactivity because there's no space in reactivity, and there's particularly no space for us to hold an intention of deep care for ourselves and for others and for whatever's arising in front of us. To journey, not to leave, another thing too, not to leave the body, but to journey in the body, right? Because I know a lot of you do journey work in different capacities, but I know a lot of people, when we practice together, you're off, you're off, you're going somewhere. And I wonder what it means. This is why we work so much with the earth, because the earth becomes an element that grounds us. It grounds us in the body, and we can travel and journey in the body. Sometimes we have to leave the body, of course, but most of the time, what would it be like for us to move into the body to begin to experience other ways of being and other kinds of phenomena?
Can I ask a follow-up question as far as, could you give an example of, like, I don't always know if I'm traveling in my body or out of my body.
Yeah. I think that can be difficult. Sometimes the body, the weight of the body, as we use the language that I often use, the seat rising to hold us. That's, for me, that could be, if I'm journeying in the body, this sensation, the anchor of my body and the seat is something that's in kind of the back of my mind. Like I can feel myself tethered to this foundation as I'm actually expanding and moving into other places. But awareness is always the key here. Do I know what I'm doing, right? Then that's the other clue. Like, and do I have agency? And we explored this maybe in Chinrezi last month, not this past meeting, but where the goal, at least what I'm doing and teaching, is for us to develop agency to choose in a moment to travel or not to travel, to journey or not to journey. Right. And that's what we're trying. This is agency, and responsiveness is one of the roots of Dharma. Right. I want to choose instead of being dragged along or feeling as if I have no agency. I want to have the space to choose how I want to be right now, be it journeying or be it just right in the moment, being anchored and holding space for everything. And it's, it could be really sweet, there's a seduction around journeying work because you can go somewhere else, right? And that going somewhere else, yes, is important, but we also need to understand that whatever we get from our journey has to come back to this timeline. So we have to gather everything and bring it back to this moment to use in order to cultivate more experiences of authentic liberation. Yeah. Thank you for the question. It's a good question. Any more questions before we begin? And I know there may be one or two catty queens, in this session. And before you say anything, I did wear this shirt yesterday, just in case you have some commentary, because Atlanta is queer, right? And I can wear a t-shirt as much as I fucking want to, right? And that's the teaching. That's the first teaching. Anyway, did I see a question somewhere? Someone have a question in the chat?
Yeah, there's one from Carla about.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of Chinreze, I wanted to ask yesterday, but had to take off immediately. Would you be willing to say more about your Reiki studies, Lama Rod? Do you consider Reiki Tantra? Yes. Yes. Well, I trained, I have a couple of different lineages of Reiki, and I've had two teachers, two Reiki masters. I've mastered in Reiki. I can say I'm a Reiki master, but it's really not a big deal. Like, I don't really get what the big deal is. Like, I was just like, what's this master Reiki thing, and what's the process? But it wasn't really my idea. Some students were like, oh, you need to like study Reiki. I wasn't doing anything back then. This was like years ago, before anyone knew who Lama Rod was. So I had some free time on my hands. I studied Ansui Reiki, Ansui lineage, which is, one of the core lineages. There's many, many lineages of Reiki. And my understanding too is that like it was a Tibetan healing practice that was lost for many years, and then was discovered, I think in the 50s, 60s again. So yeah, but Tantra, it's working with energy, moving energy. We're talking about bioenergy, prana, like all that energy is a part of Reiki practice. So I see that as being tantric, right? Absolutely. And we do a lot of that work. We do a lot of the moving of energy and sensing of energy, quite a bit, right? In our practice together, and Tantra in general. So yes, Reiki is a tantric practice. Yesterday, Yesterday, I was a bit sick, was meditating, was going to do Medicine Buddha chant, but found a great deal of sweetness in just the initial chant of Medicine Buddha, look upon me. So, so Medicine Buddha, please think of me, please look at me. Right. Mila Sangekino Soha, which is our opening chant, which is that chant, that mantra is something I created. That's not, you won't find that in the Medicine Buddha Tantras. So yeah. So I think that's really beautiful. Yeah, Medicine Buddha it is a hard time. It is a hard mantra. Absolutely, it doesn't roll off the tongue necessarily. So Milasage Kino Soha is fine because it's really about faith, right? It's about faith and conviction, right? How much do I trust this practice? The faith is what opens us up. Faith actually expands us into this experience of space. And space, we can get out, of our way and to allow energy just to move and to do and to flow where it needs to go, to flow where it needs to flow, in order to do healing work and so forth. You know, like Omen Lasenge Kino Soha, just opening up into that faith, right? And tonight I feel like I want to do Durga as well. So we'll do that at the very end because I've been missing the sweetness of Mother Durga as well. And we need that fierce mother energy in the world as well. Speaking of fierce mother energy, so this Barbie movie is real interesting. I didn't see this. I didn't see the bomb movie because who wants to see a movie about a bomb? You know, I very much enjoyed Barbie. You know, if you're a beginner to some of these ideas, like yeah, go and see that. You know, it's not an advanced master class on like gender equality and disrupting the binary, but it was fun. It was fun times, you know, with the gays. I went with my friend and we were the only people not in pink because no one told us to wear pink. Everyone was dressed like they were going to the beach, you know, which kind of happens, right? If you're like, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that's this other thing I was about to say because I am censoring myself, you know, so it's possible to do that. But I was going to say something like, you know, life is a beach when you don't have to deal with systematic oppression. And I said it. I put it out there. I said it. It's done. It is done. Okay. I'm not going to say anything else about it. One more question. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about practicing with an earth in turmoil from these climate-induced storms and destruction. Yeah. I go between feeling held, feeling grief, feeling anger. Maybe that's part of the practice. Yes. So climate anxiety, you know, is a phrase and this kind of new area of practice that a lot of people, particularly a lot of meditation teachers, are really getting into. Like, how do we tend to this anxiety about the future, about the earth, you know, in particular about our world, our physical world. So much of the climate anxiety is really about like so much of our anxiety around the climate is really about our unresolved feelings about our own death, right? Because the planet will be okay. Like the planet just has to like, you know, drop it like it's hot once and then we're gone. We're set. You know, we're no longer a species on this planet. So when we talk about climate anxiety, we're talking about change, we're talking about mortality, right? Yes, it's also about care for the earth, right, and for the planet. But the planet being however old it is, I guess billions of years, you know, don't quote me. The planet will survive. We may not survive. Humans may not survive. Cockroaches will survive and rats, you know. So what we're actually doing in climate change is trying to save our lives. You know, in climate change work, we're trying to save our lives. We're trying to save the lives and the vitality of our collective. And that means there has to be a collective conscious shift. So this is very much a spiritual crisis as much as it is a political and social crisis as well. We often forget the whole spiritual crisis part of the work right now. But this is definitely a period of spiritual warfare, right? Because we're trying to figure out who we are. We don't know who we are, and so therefore we create this impact on beings around us, not just the earth and not just other species of beings, but also the unseen world as well. But it's also vice versa, because the unseen world impacts us as well. There's a ecology, and you saints, I call it spiritual ecology. So this idea that there is a immense complex ecology, right, that we're living within, right? And that's interrelatedness, that's interdependence as part of the ecology, and everything's affecting everything else. So there's this web, of just like all these forces impacting one another. And what meditation is trying to do is cultivate this sense of awareness that helps us to tune in, right, to how we're showing up, to how other beings are showing up, to understand energy and to feel energy, right, and to learn to dance with energy, to dance with things that come up, right, instead of forcing everything away or trying to hide away or running away, right, to just show up, as we were just talking about earlier, like just to show up, to lean into space and allow space to take care of us, right, instead of trying to dominate everything, because the domination comes out of this deep contraction, right? And that contraction is a way that we're trying to avoid suffering, or hide away from suffering and so forth. Yeah. We'll definitely do some earth practice tonight in the session. And again, all of this is natural. Like, this is, you're grieving the impact that we've had on the earth. You're also grieving this future that we're not sure about. And we're also grieving our own mortality, right? And so all of that has to be tended to in practice. When I say tended, I mean that every day you should be making space to do grief work. I think grief work should become so much a part of your daily practice, because we're always grieving something. Just make it normal. Like, of course, there's grief. Everything's changing. Grief is often how we note change, how we recognize change in our lives, how we feel it. Like, grief is the felt experience of change. These storms felt like the earth was crying. Yeah, I had this experience once in retreat, in 3-year retreat. One evening, this really intense storm came through. And, being in a retreat, you're just hypersensitive to everything. And I was just sitting for the first time feeling into, I would say, the emotions of the storm, right? The storm felt like it was mirroring my own inner turmoil, it was just everything that I was moving through in retreat. And you can feel, there's a sadness, like everything grieves, I think, including the earth, right? Right, just to hold it and to remember that the earth is much more resilient than we are, that the earth, this idea of earth and land, is actually quite complex. Again, there's an ecology. So you're not just talking about physical land, but you're talking about the consciousness of land and earth. You're talking about all the beings connected, both, particularly unseen beings, but also all living beings, right? There's is a complexity, that it even feels like the earth arises as a collective in itself, right? Keyed in or tied to many different kinds of expressions and energies. Yeah. And see, meditation practice as a habitual alternative to talking about difficult things with one of partner, supposedly. Meditation practice as habitual alternative to talking about difficult things with one's partner, supposedly to do no harm. Well, conflict can be meditative as well. Too, if I can understand the question, but I think that meditation is as much doing and moving into and holding space for difficulty, as it is about stillness and silence, wherever, we may think it is as well. Meditation is just being aware of. That's all we're doing. You can be cussing someone out and be very clear that you're cussing someone out and making a choice to do that and feeling everything that needs to be felt, right? Yeah. So let's see, there's a hand raised. Who's from David?
Yeah, that's David. Thanks, Lama Rod. Calling in from East Harlem. You shouted it out last time, so just want to represent New York City. But question, I guess, dovetails with some of what the other questions were. Just came out of a plant medicine ayahuasca ceremony last weekend with Zen master and Curandera from Brazil. And one of the things they told me as I was meditating and turning inward, that when I came up for the second cup, that I should come outward, which kind of contradicts everything I've ever learned in any spiritual practice. And I understand the broader teaching that my practice is only worth anything if I can bring it into the world, come off the mountaintop and, chop wood and carry water. So I get it. And yet I was so rattled. And just listening to what you're saying in terms of meditation and why I'm even doing this practice. I mean, I always thought it was to gain a better appreciation of my consciousness. I mean, deeper awareness, presence. So I'm just staying with that and trying to take the teaching. It just seemed defensive to me. Come out of my inner journey. I don't know. And just as I'm sitting with meditation, it's any sort of lucid dreaming I'm doing, any practice, and maybe that's the teaching is. But I live so much in the world. I'm a social worker, therapist, social justice advocate. So I know I need to integrate the two, and I get it, and I understand it. But just in terms of my practice and finding the way out is turning in. So I guess just wondering what you would have to say about that, and what somebody said about sort of spiritual bypass. Maybe I'm also thinking about social activist bypass. I mean, in terms of trying to be in the world but not of it, and do my practice, plant medicine and or otherwise, mystical, contemplative, meditative, but still, not losing a sense of the world, but not being of the world. So I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes we get really attached to this idea of like safety in spiritual comfort or in spiritual practice. Like, it's like we get really fixated on this inward work. It's like, oh, it feels really great to go in because the world is just too much, and that's important. Like, we all need that space. But also at the same time, wisdom and clarity are trained in doing and being with others and being in the world, and what we're called to do now is to be in the world, is to really to take wherever we can get from our own inner journey and to actually apply that instantly to the work that we're doing in the world, because we just don't have the time anymore. It's like you have to start flying even though you're still building the plane. Like some of us are waiting till that plane is completely done, but we don't have that luxury. I don't know if we've ever had that luxury. I think maybe some people have had that luxury, absolutely, but it's like whatever I learned 5 minutes ago from whatever practice, I have to be putting it out into the world in the next 5 minutes. Like, that's how quick the turnaround has to be. So the medicine gives you the space to do this work, and the next day the medicine is like, okay, let's work. Like, be in the world, but as you said, really clearly, it's like we're not of the world, right? But we have to make sure that we stay connected to the world. As I often say, we have to consume the world before the world consumes us. Because a lot of people are being consumed by the world. They're being consumed by the fear, the hate, and the anxiety, right? And they're reacting to that consumption. But we're trying to reverse that as a kind of fierceness that we're showing up in the world and saying, you know what, I'm going to hold space for everything. And that's how I keep from being eaten, consumed by the world. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So I should have went to Beyonce with my kid.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question. Mary or Mayor?
Mayor,
Uh-huh.
just one really quick question. What translation of into English of the Heart Sutra would you recommend the most?
So I have often recommended Thich Nhat Hanh's version. So I haven't actually decided which translation I'm going to be using for the course. So I'm going to look at some different translations. I've translated it myself, but we'll see if I want to go with my personal translation. But yeah, I would start with the Thich Nhat Hanh's. Thich Nhat Hanh always has a very generous, and open translation, of things. So I would do that. And we'll be chanting the Heart Sutra in English, also in the course as well. And I'm going to be using more of a Zen version of that with the drum. Okay. Great. Well, thank you all for your questions. I just really, I deeply appreciate the engagement that many of you are really doing. Like, you're deeply engaging the work, you're engaging the practice. I know I'm just kind of throwing shit at you, and I know we just kind of start this thing. Quite honestly, I never know what's going to happen. Like I'm only just like 30 seconds ahead of you in any practice. So like I'm only getting it 30 seconds before I need to teach it. But the way that you're engaging is really important. I know this is a very different style of teaching. My teaching style and work is going to start changing as we get closer to the end of the year. As well, there's going to be more structure. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening, which will help me to actually teach more and to start laying more of a beginner's foundation right? Because this is really advanced. Like this is like super, super advanced. But this is the only way that I learned. I never had a beginner's course in anything. I walked into the meditation hall when I was 23 or 24, and this is what was being served. Like there was no one saying, okay, here's the 101 course about this, right? No, it's just like we're doing nature of mind right now. We're doing awareness. We're doing emptiness meditation right now. And so I just kind of had to jump in. Of course, 3-year retreat was like the 101. 3-year retreat is like you're just building a house from the foundation, from the basement, which is great. I think that's what that needed to be. But again, like I'm just kind of throwing you in right into the thick of this. And it's okay, there's a lot of blessings, a lot of transmission happening. You're getting and have gotten, for those of you who've been around for years now, for the past 3 years, like you're really getting into the essence of medicine Buddha, which is an experience that took me a while to really understand for myself, right? But all the practices in Tibetan Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism is really about getting us to emptiness, to that essence, right? And sometimes, I feel like it's a lot easier if someone like me shows up and just kind of throws you into the essence. So you actually get it. Instead of, for me, I just kind of wandered around saying, okay, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what this is. I'm just closing my eyes and chanting. And that's what I did for years. I was just going through the motions. Like, I don't think I was having real practice experience, right? And so after retreat, I really had to throw everything out the window and start from scratch, because all I was doing was chanting really fast in another language, which is what Tibetan Buddhism is. Formal practice is just chanting really quickly. And 3-year retreat, it's like you have things to do. So it's like the faster you chant, the quicker you get to doing those things that you actually want to do. And I had to just disrupt that. I had to throw all of that out the window. And that's why what I do is so different. Too, it's like I'm not really basing everything on liturgy right now. Not to say that won't happen in the future, because I think it will. But before the liturgy, I just want us to be in relationship to who we're supplicating, right? And I think a liturgy, a text can get in the way, right? So anyway, so that's what we're doing. We just kind of go there, I help you to get there. You have an experience. Whatever you get, whatever you experience, you come back, you bring it back into your life, you bring it back into your body, right? And that's the kind of healing we're talking about, to create the space, open the space in our experience for change to happen. Change won't ever happen with no space, with no connection to space, no embodiment of space. No liberation is going to happen, no healing is going to happen without first embodying spaciousness, right? This is why deity practice is incredibly important, right? Like medicine Buddha, as a deity practice, right? Yeah, just being thrown in, right? Just being just thrown in, and learning to trust yourself, in the practice. Just learning to say, I'm just gonna let go, and I'm gonna let the earth take care of me, right? Because this is the most important relationship with the earth that we can cultivate, and that relationship is relying on the earth to take care of us, instead of always feeling as if we have to dominate the earth. Like, how do we allow ourselves to be held and tended by the earth, right? That releasing, the letting go, sometimes I use the word relaxing, right? Which is, maybe challenging for some of us, this idea of relaxing, but to let go, to surrender, to be held. This is the language I'm always using. Allow the seat to rise, to hold you, surrendering to the seat, trusting the seat, right? To hold us, right? That's how we should be in relationship to the earth, to be able just to lie on the earth, right? And to feel the earth rising, to hold you, to feel the consciousness of the earth, to feel, that when we touch the earth through our awareness, we begin to connect to all beings connected to the earth, to touch all of our relations, right? To touch all of our relations. And when you experience that connection or start to experience that connection, you begin to change. It's a fundamental change that begins to happen, right? I mean, to touch the earth. And as you touch the earth, you touch all beings connected to the earth, right? And that's very, very possible, right? If we train in it, right? If we surrender, if we let go, like the earth, right? And not just the earth. I mean, so many elemental conscious energies, the wind, fire, air, water, everything is there to take care of us. And I have a really extensive practice in the New Saints that I won't be teaching until the book comes out, about how you surrender to the elements in this way in order to develop a deeper sensitivity to the natural world, right? Which is what colonialism, and systems of power and hierarchy have completely disrupted. Like, these systems have disrupted our fundamental connection to the natural world, where we no longer see ourselves as an expression. No, we no longer see or experience ourselves as an expression of the natural world, but rather as this kind of separate, really antagonistic being who's trying to manipulate the phenomenal world to get our needs met, right? That everything can be dominated, can be manipulated, can be, subdued, subjugated, right? Well, it's our minds, right, that need to be subdued. It's not the phenomenal world. The phenomenal world is okay. Like, in a tantric worldview, the phenomenal world is sacred. What isn't so sacred is our fixation to a sense of ego or self that sees itself as being opposed or separate from the phenomenal world, and also the essence, which is emptiness and space and energy, right? All of our practices are about returning home to this fundamental experience of emptiness, right? And in the Heart Sutra, what we learn is that we can be at home in emptiness and also hold space for form at the same time. That you can, another way of saying that, you can be in the world and still be deeply rooted in emptiness, but you're still in the world and you're still responding to the world. And that's not bypassing. Like, you can have a view, an experience of emptiness, and still choose to engage with the world in a way that feels more spacious, more generative, more liberating. That's what we're trying to do. And in that way, we're not being consumed by the world. We're actually consuming phenomena by actually allowing space to be present, to hold everything. Yeah. I know this is like real profound shit. It's just like, and I hope it's not too intense, too overwhelming. Because like I said, I got thrown into the deep end and I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what was what these terms were, like, I don't use traditional lineage, terminology that you would find in Dzogchen. I started as a Dzogchen practitioner, for those of you who are professional Tibetan Buddhists. Like I started out in Dzogchen and had to learn Dzogchen, and then I ended up, because of Lama Willa Baker, ended up in Kagyu school, and I was doing Mahamudra, and became a Kagyu Lama, right? And for most of the time, had no idea. Even in theory retreats, sometimes I was like, I have no idea what emptiness is. Like, it's just this word, right? And I'm chanting, and I had to sit and meditate, but I don't know if I'm meditating. I would fall asleep in meditation and think I was having some profound meditative absorption experience, right? That's bypassing that, or maybe that's more confusion. I don't know. But it can all be so simple, right? And it is the simple. And I didn't get that at the very beginning, right? But it can all be really simple if we can let go. If we can let go, we'll let go and let God. But we're not ready for that yet. But I do actually mean that in a very serious way. Let go. Because God is space and emptiness. God isn't some wrathful being, God is love, God is space, God is change, all of that, God isn't this person who hates me. God is just this expression, of all phenomena, right? And to touch God, for me to embody God is only to embody love, right? Love is this deep wish, a deep concern, really, for everyone to have what they need, right? To get free, essentially, to make sure everyone has what they need to get free from the causes and conditions of suffering, to return back to space and emptiness, right? To transcend all these limitations, all these dualities and binaries, and so many people, like, so much, people, we don't know who we are, right? And we fight over it. It's like, this is, it's more than just, well, I'm not going to get into all of that because I want to get into practice, but just to end this part of our our session, it's just by saying that, like, we're trying to figure out who we are in this practice, and as much as I love identity, I love Blackness and queerness and, everything, right? But I'm also not this. I'm not this Black queer man. I'm not this, I'm not this Lama. I really am not. Like, this is part of the ways that I show up in the world, but fundamentally, I'm just empty. I'm just an expression of emptiness, right? So are you. Right? I'm just trying to remember that. This is what Medicine Buddha and all deities in the Tantric pantheon are trying to do. They're trying to show us who we are, right? So there can be space for us to respond to how the phenomenon, so there can be space for us to choose how to relate to how the relative world is arising, as this experience of identities and categories and so forth, right? That you can still be who you are, but also there can be this experience of liberation at the same time. Like, I don't have the same experience of being Black and queer at this point in my life as I did early on, because I have found so much freedom and fluidity in these identity locations, which can be coded as disprivileged, right? It can be, it is, caste is disprivileged, but so much of spiritual abolition is saying, you know what, I no longer consent to how the world is shaping me as someone with no agency. It's like saying, nope, I'm not going to do that right now. So let's get into practice. The hour has flown by. I'm going to try to, if there's any other questions, go ahead and put those in the chat box. I'm going to try to save a couple of minutes at the end of our practice to look at those. Oh, what a sweet comment. You speak to saints and sinners and all. I am both. I am both a saint and a sinner. Sometimes I'm more of a sinner. I used to have a lot more fun sinning, but I am reformed. Jesus came and found me, and therefore I've been born again. Like, I just don't know how to say certain things in a dharmic way, so I just switch over to theology, which makes me sound like a fundamentalist or sometimes evangelical, but I'm like, that's not what I mean. I'm actually meaning I want people to be free. Like, I want people to have agency to determine, how they want to be in relationship to their bodies and identities, Anyway, we keep talking and it takes time away from practice. To let yourself be free, right? I like that, to let ourselves be free. What does that mean, to give ourselves permission? Because so much of this fundamentalism is really about self-control. I am deeply subjugating myself, and the only thing that I can give to the world is an expression of subjugation. If I'm not free, you're not going to be free. Right? And then this is the point where you draw the line and say, no, actually, I'm going to practice freedom. I'm going to actually practice freedom right now. Is it annoying to have so many white students? I don't see race. I'm fucking, I don't see race. What am I, enlightened? Like, what the fuck? No, it's just, I'm gonna say this, I know I need to practice, but like, I've been thinking about my teacher, my real teacher, my main teacher, Nola Rinpoche, and how much I got on his nerves, as a student. Like, I was just really a difficult student. I didn't want to do shit. Like, I didn't want to like practice. I didn't want to chant. I was like, this is all so fucking boring. Like, I just, and he would just be like, sometimes he would just be like, who are you? What are you doing here? I had to go into 3-year retreat because that was the only way that I was going to actually practice, like, seriously. Like, I had to do that. I have to do extreme things, for me to get the point, But anyway, I think about him, and I just think about I know some of you are teachers, what I commit to as a teacher. And so much of what I do, how I hold you all, is because of the deep love and kindness that has been expressed to me from my own teachers who didn't have to like deal with me, but I showed up and they were like, okay, so you're here, you might as well like join the cult, shave your head, put the dress on, go sleep in a wooden box for 3 years, right? And the labor that was poured into me, is something that I don't think I can ever repay to my teachers. But if there is a way to repay that, is to offer the same labor to you all, What some of you see as difficult doesn't register often with me as well. So if you think you're difficult, sometimes I don't even get that, because my primary gift is space. So like, let space deal with your hard-headedness. Let the mother, right? Let the deity, I'm just going to practice love. My deepest ethic is for wanting everyone to be free, right? And continuing to work until everyone's free, right? No matter how long that takes. Love sustains us. True love deeply sustains us, deeply nourishes us, right? But it's love first and foremost for ourselves, right? I have to love myself enough in order to offer this love to you. Again, so whatever you're getting is happening with me first, not the other way around. You're not getting anything that hasn't gone through my practice, right? Because if it doesn't, then it becomes inauthentic. I'm not trying to cheat you, out of anything. I have no need to be a guru. Like, teaching, right, is not the only thing that I'm trained to do in life. So this isn't like a last ditch effort to be successful in life. Like, I could have already been famous, but I'll tell those stories later on. Like, I'm talented. I have talents. I'm not Beyonce talented, but I have some, I can sing a few notes if I had to. Anyway, let's transition into practice. I know some of you just want to hear me talk for hours, but practice is what actually gets us free, right? So to begin with, we start with the intention, right? And the intention is to practice, to experience liberation for ourselves and for others, right? I'm practicing for the earth. I'm practicing for my family. I'm practicing for my partners and friends, for my communities, for my work, for, wherever we belong, for the collective. I'm only doing this because I want to be free and I want others to be free. So this is the labor that I do for myself in this moment to cultivate this liberation. This aspiration is what begins to open the door to space. When you just let go and let go of all these agendas and aspirations. I'm not practicing to be powerful. I'm not practicing to be pretty. I'm not practicing to influence you. I'm practicing to get free. And when it's just about freedom, you can let all that shit go. Like, this is about getting free. This is about transcending binaries. This is about disrupting the causes and conditions of suffering. This is about connecting to space and emptiness. This is about relating to energy, fundamental energy. It's about remembering who we are. And even now, like, just, if you want, just reflecting on, someone or a community or something that you're practicing for, that you really want to dedicate practice to, and it could be the earth, it could be, someone beloved to you, it could be your communities, it could be your country that you're living in. You know, it can be the ocean or whomever. It could be for poor Ken who's still trying to figure out who he is, you know, separate from Barbie. And you can say everything that awakens, everything positive and liberatory, I just dedicated instantly, directly to those I'm practicing for. And when you're ready, we're going to call in the earth to ground our practice. So we begin by connecting to the seat under you, noticing the weight of your body, the seat rising to hold you. Noticing how the seat becomes an expression of the earth. That when I surrender to the seat, I'm also surrendering to the earth. When I acknowledge the surrendering, then I am touching the earth. My attention or awareness is touching into the consciousness of the earth itself. And of course, as soon as my awareness touches into the consciousness of the earth, then I begin to touch all beings connected to the earth, which is all beings, right? Both seen and unseen. And we'll move into our opening mantra, Nama Sangye no Soha. And we're going to chant it. You know, we're going to chant this mantra, which is Medicine Buddha, please think of me, which is kind of calling or attuning to the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. But we're going to actually offer this mantra to the earth. Because the earth can also arise as the deity, as Medicine Buddha even. So we're going to chant this 3 times as an offering to the earth, inviting the earth really in the chanting to become an expression of Medicine Buddha. We'll begin. Om La Sangye Kino Soha. Om La Sangye Kino Soha. Om La Sangye Kino Soha. And we begin to imagine that the earth, the land, begins to awaken as an expression of Medicine Buddha. And however that feels, however you're beginning to imagine that, just go with it. You know, what does it mean for the land or earth under us to actually express itself as this Buddha of healing. And can we feel the awakening, the arising, this radiance rather, of deep care from the earth as it awakens as medicine Buddha? And allowing ourselves to surrender even more to the care of the earth now as medicine Buddha. As we are held more and more by the earth, as we surrender more and more to the earth, allowing space to awaken. And we notice space. We connect to space by just kind of letting go of these fixations and agendas and hooking on or getting hooked to thoughts and emotions, but just letting them become what they are, experiences within the boundless expression of mind, which is at the same time the boundless expression of all phenomena. And to go even deeper, I invite you to reflect on love. And often when I say love, I'm also referring to compassion. So love and compassion are very similar for me now. But when I say to reflect on love, to reflect on what it means to want all beings to be free. And maybe that's too much of a leap. So maybe you begin with wanting the people who you love, the beings whom you love deeply to be free. Whomever those beings are that's close to you, be it children and partners and family, best friends, pets, or even, plants as well. But what does it first feel like wanting those who are beloved to you to be free first? What does that feel like? And when you're grounded in that love for your beloveds, begin to extend that love out to all beings, as many beings as you can, where you're saying, I want all beings to be free. Even the beings that I don't like, I especially want them to be free. All the beings who don't like me, I want them to be free. And to let go of resentment, right? To let resentment and pain and suffering just be held in space, not to push it away, not to bypass, but just let it be there. And to also say, even though this person has hurt me, I want them to be free. And maybe you're in this place where you're like, I still want them to go to hell, but I still want them to be free. You can say both of those together. That's where many of us have to start. Though I want this person to really go to hell, I do really want them to be free as well. Of course, we want to let go of the going to hell bit at some point in our practice. So expanding, opening, widening that wish for beings to be free. And you can even imagine that this love, this awakening love, that you begin to dissolve somehow in this deep wish for all beings to be free. What does it mean, really? What does it mean to be consumed by love? Letting yourself dissolve into love. And knowing that that love is also an expression of the earth and medicine Buddha. So in a way, when we dissolve into love, we're dissolving into the liberated consciousness of all Buddhas. And our awareness begins to mingle, to saturate the boundless, liberated consciousness of all the Buddhas. And even now, even Medicine Buddha as an expression of the earth, that we can dissolve into this profound, liberated experience. We're going to transition into Medicine Buddha's main mantra, Teata, Bekenze, Maha, Bekenze, La, Susumum, Gate, Soha. And as we begin to work with the mantra, just imagining that because we've dissolved into the consciousness of Medicine Buddha, which is the consciousness of the earth, that this mantra begins to reverberate through the entire earth, magnified by Medicine Buddha's liberated consciousness, where all beings, all of our relations, are being benefited through the practice of this mantra. So we begin. O Deyadam Begunze, Begunze, Ma Begunze, Raza Sumunga Tesoha. 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 And so from this space, offering our prayer requests, as we do, calling into the sacred space all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, all the Dharma protectors, all beings of light, all benevolent ancestors, all the elements and guardians of the elements, all the beings of the 10 directions. We call these beings here and to hold these prayers on our behalf, to work on our behalf, to bring about the fruition of what we most need for ourselves, and for those connected to us. We're offering prayers that I may understand this illness. May the lining of my lungs be healed and restored. May I have compassion for those in similar situations and patience for this body as it changes. Offering prayers for Diana and Joanne May and Mariano who are recovering from surgery. For me, Chachu, as I continue to know myself, may I do so while creating the least amount of nonviolence to myself and others. For Michelle, who is recovering from surgery, NM, who is recovering from illness, me, who is prepping for a medical procedure, and all gender expansive folks. For support through rehoming my family. For Trisha, for her heart and mind and healing as she works through her cancer. Prayers for my grandfather who is still in the hospital. May he receive the care he needs to heal and return home. Prayers for M, who is going through major life changes at a very young age. May he be held and supported as he goes through new experiences. Offering prayers for Megan, who has had cancer return. Offering prayers for myself, Vanessa, to remember to give myself grace and understanding, while also gently holding myself accountable and staying disciplined with the practices that keep me whole. Offering prayers of gratitude for Eleanor's surgery going well. Offering prayers for our dear planet and all her beings. Offering continued prayers for her cancer profile to come out clean. Prayers for Linda's mom who suffered a really bad hit and run, that she be cared for and recover well. Offering prayers for those of us feeling deep sadness, disconnection, and despair. Offering prayers for the unhoused people in my neighborhood. Offering prayers for me as I navigate confusion and despair. May I see clearly and discern how to move toward the light. Offering prayers for Toby's jaw surgery, healing well. Prayers for all those who were abandoned at an early age. Prayers for my beloveds to have all they need for dignity, safety, and belonging. Offering prayers for my own spiritual growth. Prayers for my dear spouse that he find all he needs within himself. Offering prayers for some ease and joy for myself and my family in the coming weeks. Offering prayers for my father. May he be well. Offering prayers to get through this flare-up. Prayers for everyone to connect with wonder. Prayers for my brother that he knows he is loved, that he is healing his trauma and grief. Prayers for Steve and his mental wellness. Prayers for my relationship with Rob, which is rocky. I want to shut myself down to him because he is shutting himself down to me. Prayers for my stressful housing situation. Prayers for my loneliness, that I continue to connect with myself in the unseen world, that I let in the connection that is available to me. Offering prayers for us to take care of this land. And offering prayers for the courage to choose love every day and trust God. Offering prayers that I may wake up and remember who I am for the courage to do so again and again. Offering prayers for Cameron, who is having a difficult procedure tomorrow morning at 7. Prayers for all beings that struggle with suicidal ideation and addiction. May they experience peace in their minds, bodies, and hearts. Prayers for everyone who is a parent or the main caretaker for children and seniors. May you have as much rest as you need to care for yourself and not just for everyone else. May you have the resources and support you need. Offering prayers for people experiencing low energy, numbness, and depletion, for the possibility of being rested and restored. Offering prayers for my beloved, may they be free, protected, and healed deeply. Offering prayers for focus and presence. Offering prayers that I live from a place of space and experience the freedom and liberation that is already within me. Praying for clarity for the confusion and pain between my partner and I. May we move through this difficult moment together to see each other clearly again. Prayers for so many friends dealing with illness, especially Hava Bailey, Linda Rodriguez, Mahan and Janice Siller, Ricky Joyner and others with various needs, my daughter Hollister and her children and husband, my neighbor Kathy dealing with her husband with early onset Alzheimer's, Myself with sprained ankle and ongoing knee issues, so mobility, inner and outer, is challenging. So much to hold and work with. Pretty tired. Offering prayers for Heidi, who is holding on for dear life and struggling to find the will. May she find her life. Prayers for Driad. May they find safe housing. Prayers for Liz. May her upcoming complicated birth go well. Prayers for Debbie during her pregnancy. May she be well. May she be at ease. Prayers for my dear friend Shawanda, who is having a hard time believing in her power and feeling overwhelmed by health and financial issues, and finding the right job to share her many talents. Prayers for Brian, that he may allow courage to seek refuge, that he may allow courage to seek refuge and trust in ultimate Buddha nature, the emptiness and drama, the emptiness of Dharma, and in universal limitless Sangha. Prayers for Ian as he navigates death and his partner's story, navigating near death and a new life without him. I continue to offer prayers for all beings, for all of us who are struggling to get the resources, the safety, the wellness within systems of violence and domination. That we all be freed from all these systems of control, that we all may actually embody the deepest, fiercest love for ourselves and our communities. May we all disrupt the causes and conditions of suffering, and may we get as free as possible. And may we all one day remember who we are. And may all these prayers, all these aspirations and expressions of love come to fruition as quickly as possible. And returning back to our chanting. We're just going to go for another 10 minutes. And we're returning back to Medicine Buddha, and also if we can go ahead and put up the Durga mantra. So I'm going to go right into Durga in a couple of minutes. As we move back into our mantra, there's so much anxiety and fear and worry and numbness and sadness and activation and disembodiment and so forth, all happening with so many of us. I just pray that in this moment, in this last few minutes of our practice, that we can just let go and let these experiences be offered into the sacred, awakened, liberated consciousness of the earth, of Medicine Buddha. Letting space hold everything that we're struggling to hold and be in relationship to. That we don't have to figure out anything right now. We're just allowing ourselves to be held, letting the earth, letting the awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha hold everything that we struggle to hold for ourselves, so that we and all beings can experience freedom from suffering. O te Adam, begunze, ma begunze, razazun gati soa. 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 Te Adam, begunze, ma begunze, And even from the stillness, we allow this fierce mother to arise, Mother Durga, fierce in her battle to protect, to subdue all the causes and forces of suffering and violence. We call on her as also an expression of space itself, as the mother is always an expression of space. Calling her into this sacred practice to offer the healing of spaciousness, the nurturing of boundlessness into our practice. Drum Durgaye Namaha. Beginning with and just chanting and then going into the mantra. Beginning now. Om Dum Daye Namaha. 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 Returning our attention back to the seats, so the seat rising to hold us, touching deeper into the earthers arising as Medicine Buddha, remembering the Mother Durga, who arises as space itself to help free us from fixation and attachment. Thanking the earth, thanking Medicine Buddha, thanking Mother Durga for their blessings. Allowing ourselves to return back to this timeline, back to the seeds, back to the space that we're practicing in. But as we return, returning in space, returning in fluidity, returning cloaked and held by the blessings of these awakened entities, bringing movement back into the body, moving through a few deep cleansing breaths. And slowly we return to our closing prayer, Shantideva's prayer from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Reciting it 3 times. May I be a protector to all those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for all those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the boundless beings, for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. All right. Thank you all so much for your practice and your patience. It was so good practicing um, with everyone. Thank you so much for everything. And yeah, so awesome. And I will see you all next week for practice as well. And until then, may you be blessed, and may your hearts be tended to, and may the world, the phenomenal reality, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, may everything conspire so that all of your needs are met, that you have everything that you need, and that you're able to have everything to offer to others as well. May everything be so. Right. Thank you all.